Hey guys, so this is going to be a continuation of the head UVing tutorial. Um, if you haven't seen that, you can go back and watch. I'm not going to be doing anything with the head in this video. This is going to be all about UVing the body. And we already have the UVs of the head done right here. I've got the body partially hidden. So let me go to object mode and hit Shift H, and that'll unhide everything. And then I'm going to let me select these UV shells and get them out of the way. Shift H or just H, so we can just focus on the body. So it looks like in the previous tutorial I accidentally made a cut along the fingers here. Let me just go in here. I'll select this edge. Where did it go to? And I'll just hit Shift. Oh, let me turn on symmetry. I'll hit Shift S just to undo that cut because we don't really want that. Alright, so just to catch everybody up, if you're just watching the body UVing tutorial, I'll just go roughly over what I did. So I selected the body, I deleted the UVs, I went up and I created a camera-based UV system. So this is just like kind of a snapshot of the body in UV form. The shells, there's only a single shell and it's overlapping. So I already have another body done, and I think it's set up on 3 separate tiles, and I have this set up torso, legs, arms. And you can see the cuts that I made here. So let's start cutting this guy up. So I'll open up the other guy. Let's start with, it's the same principles as before. I'm using mostly Shift S and Shift X to cut and sew the seams. And I should also add that it's really important to have good topology, and if you don't have clean loops around the deforming joints and you don't have your poly set up on a relative grid, then this is going to be a lot more tricky, and you're going to have to go in and start selecting individual edges to try to make complete loops. But little disclaimer there, but let's just continue onward. So let's separate the arms. I've got a clean loop around the shoulder here. I'm going to hit Shift X, and I'll take these UV shells over here, and I'll separate the legs out. I've got a clean loop going around here at the top of the hips. Hit Shift X, and I'll move these UV shells out of the way. And we'll just worry about the torso for now. So you could separate the torso similar to how I have the face done into the front half of the head and the back half of the head, and then the eye bags don't really apply. But I have it, the way I typically do it is I have just a single shell split in half on one of the sides. It doesn't really matter. So I'll turn symmetry off. I'll select one of the edges along the sides, and usually you want to hide the seams. So this looks like a good one. You know, when the arm is resting, it'll be covering up this seam. So we'll just select that, and I'll hit Shift X to cut that up. And then the other seams that we have to cut up, let me turn symmetry back on. Shift X. These two little handles up here. You can think of this almost like a t-shirt, the torso. Think about how the seams of a t-shirt work. Then I'll hit Shift X, and then this, one more cut down here, base of the torso. Let's do this one. Hmm. Let's do this one. So I'm making a cut. This is going to extend into the legs. Let's stop this like at the ankle. So this is a clean, well, relatively clean loop that goes from the crotch and follows the inside of the legs. I think this is where I made that cut before. And I'll just hit Shift X. And now our torso is set up to flatten out. Control U, and then I'll hit Control L, and that'll lay it out. And let me just move this over. UV shell. And then I just like to rotate it so it's sort of straight a little bit. Now, if you want, you could separate them in half and see if you can get more texture resolution about like rearranging them as two separate shells, but this way I think it's just a little neater to have it as a single shell. Alright, let's do the arms next. Let me move these legs over. So for the arms, I want to keep them as just two shells. Least amount of shells I think is better. And I'm going to pick an edge that follows the edges of the fingers and goes in between the fingers. And I think this is the one. And you can see this is a good loop because it goes straight up the back of the arm, across the back, and then follows right along into the other arm. And we don't need to make this cut along the back, so we'll just hit Control and deselect those edges. And then hit Shift X in the UV mode. And then Control U to unwrap. We've got good shells. So you'll notice that the UVing is a lot easier if you've given some foresight into it when you were retopologizing your mesh. If you, like I said before, if you've got good topology, it's going to make that whole UVing process a lot easier. So this was like a single cut. And then I'll just hit Control L, or yeah, Control L to lay out. And you can fiddle with these. I'll show in, I'll give another look in this one how I have it laid out. But I'm not going to go through and like scale up and try to squeeze them in as much as possible. This is as good as I could get it after playing with it for a while, but I'm not going to waste your guys' time. You can, try to rearrange them as best you want. You can separate the hands out if you'd like as well. All right, and then for the feet and legs on the last tile, I separated the feet at the ankles, and I had a clean loop here. Shift X. Separate those shells out. And then I think, let me take a look, because I can't remember how I did this. And then it looks like I made a cut similar to the fingers. It went in between the toes along the tips, and I came back here and ended it right at the back of the heel. So let's make that. Start here. I think it goes to here. Let's see. And then I'll just deselect what I don't want. Control. That should be good. Shift X. I'll select these shells, hit Control U to unwrap them, and then I'll hit Control L. And I'll bring those back. And again, I'm not going to take the time to rearrange them. If you want, this is how I have them organized in the UDIMs on the other body. Now, if you wanted them all in a single tile, that may work for you depending on what you're trying to do. I think that it's not enough texture resolution for an entire body, and that you should separate them in the UDIMs. 4 is really not that many. A lot of in production will separate this all the way out into 15 or 20 UDIMs. And the other thing is, if you're worried about seams showing up, if you have really high resolution textures and a lot of separate UDIMs, usually if you have really, really high resolution, 4K maps, 8K maps, you're not going to see those seams as much. All right. Let me go back and I'll show you guys one more time how I have this arranged. If you want it all in a single tile, let me go back and I'll select all these shells. Oops, I have to unhide the head. Let me select everything and I'll hit Control U one more time and Control L. And it does a decent job, but there's a lot of extra space in this tile. You'd have to play with it yourself. I'm sure you could do a better job than the automatic layout. And let's just take a look at the checkered pattern. And it looks like it gave you relatively even topology, or texture density, I should say. But again, I like to have more in the face. And another thing to look out for when you're doing automatic layouts, sometimes it will give you a vert or an edge that will creep into that other UV tile. And this can cause problems when, render issues, whatever. So you want to just make sure you always, I always try to have a couple pixels breathing room. See, I would say even this is too close. All right, that's going to wrap it up. Pretty quick overview of how I do the body. You can take this and extrapolate it out to, other creatures. They all follow, similar edge flow patterns with, similar edge loops around the deforming joints. I have another video tutorial about edge loops for deforming topology that will help you. Watch that one first, and that will really help you when it comes time to do UVs. And if you have any questions about the body UVs, leave it below in the comments. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching.